Welcome to Be Super University. Today we are going to focus a little bit more on disc and specifically the natural style of disc and your adapted style of disc. So when you take an assessment, a disc profile assessment, you fill out the questionnaire and you get two graphs. One graph is called your natural graph, the other graph is called your adapted graph. When we're talking about your natural graph, that is your style, your preferred behavior style when you are at home, when you're comfortable, when life is grand. Also, when you're heavily under pressure, that's also another time where your natural style will come out. On the adapted side, this is the style you have in environments outside of the home. So typically for a lot of people it's your behavior style for when you're at work. And when we think about both of these styles together, you want to have your adapted style to be as close as possible to your natural style, to be as happy as possible. And so there's no way to have it perfectly exact between the two graphs. However, if you're in a position or a job and your adapted style doesn't differ too much, it might go up or down in a few different areas by a little bit, then that's how you know that you're probably in a good place for your specific behavior style. But I like to look at it this way. When we have our fuel tank here, everybody has their fuel tank that they start at the beginning of the day, and as you work through the day, if you are able to live your natural style or as close as you can to your natural style, then little by little your fuel will be used up until, let's say, the end of the day. Maybe you don't quite get to empty by the end of the day, because that's when you conserve the most amount of fuel, is when you're able to live your natural style. Now let's talk about your adapted style. If you are in an environment that makes you really stretch from one side to the other, as far as the graph, I'll point you up here or down here to the graph, we have two different sides to the disc graph. You have the four factors. And so for me, let's give me as an example. On the influence factor, you can see that I'm a 96. So if I needed to adapt to go towards the other side of that style, by doing so, I'm going to use extra fuel, extra energy throughout the day. And so if I'm in an environment that is requiring me to change dramatically from the style I'm natural to, my fuel is going to get used up quicker. And if my fuel gets to empty before the end of the day, before I'm able to recuperate and get ready for the next go, over a long period of time, that could really hurt somebody physically and mentally to be in that kind of situation. If you've ever seen people who get burnt out in the job that they're in, there's a chance that their adapted style, the way they're adapting to work that job, might not fit well with their natural style, which is causing them to exert extra energy day in and day out, leading to that getting overworked or to that burnout. So just to give you another kind of analogy with the natural and adapted, I don't know if any of you have ever played video games, but imagine a video game where you're racing and you need to get all the way to the finish line. And as you're going from the start to the finish line, along the way, there's gas cans to pick up extra fuel. You have your little fuel gauge that's there. But also along the way, let's say you have a turbo. You have a turbo button that you can push at any time, and that'll use extra gas, but it could possibly get you there quicker. And maybe if you pick up enough fuel tanks, maybe you can still get to the finish line. I imagine that turbo as adapting, turning on your adaption. to be able to adapt to the situation that you're in for that day or throughout that day with the person that you're talking to. And so if used wisely, you can get through the day, you can be just fine. If you're doing it every day and you're forced to do it because of the environment you're in, you could get to empty pretty quick and be out of gas and not be able to move forward. When we're talking about the natural style, this doesn't change very often. Major life events can cause your natural style to change a little bit, but your adapted style changes all the time. If you change jobs, you're from one job to the next, that could change your adapted style depending on your new position that you're in. If you lose your job, that could also change your adapted style, because now you're having to adapt to different factors because you're now searching for a job. Maybe you got fired or you're threatened to get fired and you don't want to get fired. Those types of things can really change that adapted style or that adapted graph. So now, I don't know if you've noticed this yet, but maybe you've noticed Donald Trump over here. And the reason I have Donald Trump up here is because he is such a polarizing individual. A lot of people love him, a lot of people hate him. And we found out through this recent election that more people, I guess, hate him or dislike him, and that allowed Joe Biden to win the race this time around. But I don't want to focus on any of that. I want to focus on him behaviorally and kind of understand how the environment, thinking about being in an environment with Donald Trump, how that could affect your disc style or your disc graph, your disc styles. And when we look at Donald Trump, we can see that his highest factor, he's what we call a core dominant factor, or nowadays with the 8 different styles here, he's a core direct style, meaning he can be aggressive with people, he's very decisive, he's ambitious, he is always moving forward at a fast pace, and can really come across to people very very hurtful, like in his language, because of how direct he can be. And he's also on the opposite side, that's where all his other factors are. And so that's not everything that makes up Donald Trump. I want to make sure and point that out. The behavior is not everything that makes Donald Trump, but that's how he does things. So this is what people observe. This is what they're seeing every day when he's in front of the camera talking to people, or sending a text message or a tweet or whatever it is he's done over all the years, right? When he's on the show and saying, "You're fired." It's the behavior, even though, it's just his behavior. But there's other things. There's driving forces. There's his emotional intelligence. All that plays into Donald Trump. But right now, we're just focusing on Donald Trump's behavior and how that affects the people around him. We've seen over Donald Trump's presidency that there's a lot of people that have left his cabinet or administration or been kicked out of his administration by him. And when I see that happening, I actually kind of think, like, could it have been a behavior mismatch? The people who didn't really get along with Donald Trump, could they have been certain behaviors that maybe don't mesh well with somebody who has such a strong, direct disc factor or disc style? And if that's so, you can imagine how it is when these people are coming into the office and they're working with Donald Trump, they're in a meeting with him, maybe they're trying to voice their opinion and Donald Trump shuts them down or tells them they're stupid or something like that they're in this environment every day, day in, day out, because this is their job. You can just imagine how quickly that fuel tank could run down to empty. And if that's happening every day because of the environment they're in, it starts to make sense of how come those situations happened. And I'm not saying that everybody can't get along with Donald Trump. What I'm saying is that people who have a similar behavior style to Donald Trump can probably get along with Donald Trump. can probably match him in the back-to-back directness that those types of people prefer. I'm also saying that some people who just are better when it comes to their disc behaviors could adapt to Donald Trump in those interactions when needed, and that could prolong their life in being involved with him, right? So I guess at this point we're kind of comparing Donald Trump to a job. When you're around Donald Trump, you have your adapted style. And is that adapted style, how does that adapted style match up to your behavior style, your disc graph? And is it a style that could work with Donald Trump? If not, could you adapt to Donald Trump? Could you shift one way or the other on any of these factors to be able to have that better interaction with Donald Trump and just have a grand old time? I don't know. I don't know if I could handle it. I like to think that I could adapt to those types of situations, but until it happens, I've never met Donald Trump, so I really don't know how I would adapt to him or how I would interact with him. But this is the benefit of understanding the disc behaviors a little bit better and understanding about yourself, actually having your own graph to tune into, to look at, to see where you are, and then starting to identify the people around you and where they are. And as you start to see that, you know if you need to shift a little bit, if you need to use a little bit extra fuel with that interaction to have a better interaction. And as long as you manage this throughout the day, as long as you're not in that environment that you have to adapt to every time, as long as you're not in that environment every day, day in, day out, you'll probably be fine. That endurance will build up and you'll understand better how to adapt to those situations. I'm Jake Newman, expert in behaviors and motivators. Thank you for coming today. If you've liked what we've talked about today, please subscribe down below. Share this with your friends, family, and leaders. Here at Be Super University, we help individuals and organizations have higher performance, more effective communications, better relationships, and a stronger team culture. And we want to do that for you. If you're interested, please use the email below. Let's talk. Let's have a 30-minute free consultation. Talk about what issues you're having, what goals and aspirations you have, and see if there's a relationship that we can develop and move forward with. But don't forget, care to share and be somebody's hero.